April 30th, 1943. 9:30 a.m., just off the coast of Spain. A local sardine fisherman, going about his day, spots something strange floating a ways off in the water. He takes a few minutes to investigate, as any curious fisherman would, and soon realizes, to his horror, he's happened upon a body. Not just any body, mind you, but the corpse of a British soldier, a captain of the Royal Marines, the acting Major William Martin. Looped around the belt of his trench coat is a chained military briefcase. The local authorities are called, and the body is sent to the city of Huelva and placed into the possession of the Spanish military. Before long, the briefcase is cracked open, and inside, the Spaniards find correspondence between two British generals, which imply that the Allies plan to invade Greece and Sardinia, using an invasion of Sicily as a diversion. The Spanish government is neutral in the war, but are known to cooperate with the Germans. Copies of the briefcase contents are soon shared with the German military, and the Nazis, stunned at their good fortune, shift their forces away from Sicily and direct them to the two invasion targets, eager to have a solid leg up on the British. A short time later, a message is sent by Brigadier Leslie Hollis, the secretary to the Chiefs of Staff Committee, to Winston Churchill. The communique reads, "Mincemeat, swallowed rod, line, and sinker." Churchill reads the message and smiles. The Nazis had fallen for it. A year previously, the Allies, pleased with their success in the North African campaign, began brainstorming their next target. While it was quickly determined that an invasion of France by Britain wouldn't be possible until 1944, Churchill wanted to reallocate forces from North Africa to attack Europe's soft underbelly. At the Casablanca Conference in January 1943, Allied planners selected Sicily as the next target, with a timetable of no later than July that year. The problem, from many in the Allied forces' point of view, was that Sicily was too obvious a choice. Control of the island would open the Mediterranean Sea to Allied shipping and make it possible to invade continental Europe through Italy. Many believed the buildup of resources necessary for the invasion would be quickly detected and blunted by the Axis. With this in mind, the British began quietly working on a secret operation that would confuse the Germans as to where the invasion would take place. Time was of the essence. They had until July to craft, execute, and complete the mission, or the invasion of Sicily would be short-lived. The operation would be overseen by the 20 Committee, which oversaw the Double Cross system, a counter-espionage and deception operation of the British Security Service. From this, two men, Ewan Montagu and Charles Chamondelay, were chosen to design and carry out the covert operation. The men took their inspiration from the Trout Memo, a 1939 wartime document which detailed a list of ways that enemy forces could be fooled or, like Trout, lured in. Number 28 on the list was titled, "A Suggestion," not a very nice one. The idea? Plant misleading documents on a corpse that would be found by the enemy. Chamondelay's spin on the idea was simple. Obtain a body from a hospital in London, fill its lungs with water, and place fake documents in an inside coat pocket. The body would then be airdropped near a shoreline, and upon finding it, the enemy would believe that they had stumbled upon important military plans from a downed soldier who had drowned after crashing into the sea. The execution of this plan presented several problems, the most obvious of which was, how do you procure a body for such a mission? Montagu and Chamondelay enlisted the help of Sir Bernard Spilsbury, a famous British pathologist, to determine what kind of body they needed and what factors they would need to take into account to fool a hypothetical Spanish pathologist into believing the cadaver to be genuine. Spilsbury informed the men that air crash victims often died from shock, not drowning, so the body's lungs would not necessarily need to be filled with water. He further supposed that the Spaniard pathologists would be Roman Catholics and therefore reluctant to perform a full autopsy. This meant their options for a suitable corpse were widened, and Spilsbury began searching London for an unwanted body that could meet the qualifications. On January 28, 1943, the body of Glyndwr Michael, a Welsh homeless man, became available. Michael died in St. Pancras Hospital, seriously ill from ingesting rat poison in an abandoned warehouse close to King's Cross. He had no family, no friends, and according to Montagu several years later, was a bit of a ne'er-do-well whose only worthwhile deed was done after his death. It was determined that the small amount of rat poison in his system would not be detectable. There was one caveat, however. The body itself only had a shelf life of 3 months, after which it would decompose past the point of usefulness. With the clock ticking, Montagu and Cholmondeley launched Operation Mincemeat and got to work creating the corpse's undercover identity. The name and rank chosen was Captain Acting Major William Martin of the Royal Marines, assigned to Combined Operations Headquarters. Martin was a common last name among Royal Marines with the rank. The hope was that if an inquiry was made about the captain's identity by the enemy, they would find several records from various different men in the division quelling any suspicion. But Montagu and Cholmondeley went even further, crafting an entire background for William Martin and filling his pockets with items meant to support the legend, including a letter from his fictitious father, an overdraft notice from Lloyd's Bank, a receipt for a diamond engagement ring, and 2 letters from a fictitious fiancée named Pam, accompanied by a photograph in which an MI5 desk clerk named Jean Leslie posed as a stand-in. Also included on the captain's person were cigarettes, a pencil stub, some keys, theater tickets, a hotel receipt, a book of stamps, and a silver cross and medallion of St. Christopher, meant to convince the Spanish pathologists that he was a fellow Roman Catholic, and thus further discourage them from performing a complete autopsy. Along with the pocket litter, the operation crafted a thorough timeline of Captain William Martin's activity in London from April 18th to the 24th. All these details combined illustrate a substantial effort to establish as much evidence of authenticity as possible. But most important of all was the document meant to mislead the Germans, a personal letter from Lieutenant General Sir Archibald Nye, Vice Chief of the Imperial General Staff, to General Sir Harold Alexander, commander of the Anglo-American 18th Army Group in Algeria and Tunisia under General Eisenhower. This letter would make reference to an impending attack on the Balkans. In the event the Spanish returned the captain's body and the attached documents to the British, a single black eyelash was placed inside the letter as a way to know whether it had been opened. Cholmondeley's plan originally called for the body to be airdropped into the sea, but seaplanes were quickly determined to be too loud and open to discovery. Simulating the air crash with an actual plane was logistically impossible. The team eventually settled upon delivering the body via covert submarine. On April 13th, with the plan finally in place, the chiefs of staff met and agreed to give the go-ahead for the operation, pending Churchill's approval. 2 days later, Colonel John Bevan, the head of London Controlling Section, met with the Prime Minister to inform him of the plan. Taking great care to explain the drawbacks, Bevan warned Churchill that any number of things could go wrong, including that the Spanish might return the corpse to the British without even opening the letter. Laying in his bed, clothed in a dressing gown and smoking a cigar, Churchill responded by quipping,
"In that case, we shall have to get the body back and give it another swim."
In the early hours of April 17th, the body of Captain Acting Major William Martin of the Royal Marines was outfitted and placed in a canister. The canister was loaded into a 1937 Fordson van, driven by British Secret Service agent St. John Jock Horsfall, who, before the war, had been a motor racing champion. Cholmondeley and Montagu traveled with the canister in the back of the van. Agent Horsfall drove through the night to Greenock, West Scotland, and, once there, the canister was taken aboard the HMS Seraph, an S-class submarine of the British Royal Navy. Seraph's commander, Lieutenant Bill Jewell, who was clued in on the op, told his men that the canister contained a top-secret meteorological device that was to be deployed near Spain. On April 19th, Seraph set sail. During the 10-day voyage, the vessel endured 2 separate bombings, and after much uncertainty, finally arrived just off the coast of Huelva. At 4:15 the next morning, Seraph finally surfaced. Jewell had the canister brought up to the deck, and then sent all men except the officers back inside the sub. The officers were quickly informed of the actual purpose of the mission, and together, they opened the canister. As the body was lowered into the water, Lieutenant Jewell read the 39th Psalm, a psalm of David, a prayer for wisdom and forgiveness. As Seraph's engines were fired up, the ship's propellers pushed the corpse toward the direction of the shore. A few minutes later, Seraph dove, and all was quiet. The body of Captain Acting Major William Martin of the Royal Marines drifted aimlessly for a few hours until finally catching the attention of a local sardine fisherman. After a quick examination by the Spanish, the body was buried on May 2nd in the San Marcos section of Nuestra Señora Cemetery in Huelva with full military honors. The grave remains there to this day. On May 11th, the Captain Acting Major's effects were finally returned to London. British Secret Service opened the briefcase and examined the letter. The eyelash was missing. Toward the end of June, the Nazis shifted their forces to the Balkans, leaving Sicily wide open. In July, the Allies invaded. By mid-August, Sicily fell. 10 years to the day after Operation Mincemeat was given the go-ahead by the Chiefs of Staff, the author of the Trout Memo, which inspired the operation, wrote another document, this time a novel. The author was Ian Fleming, and the book was Casino Royale, an espionage thriller which introduced the world to the fictional British secret agent James Bond. This episode of Really Weird History is brought to you by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with over 20,000 classes in subjects like film, writing, and design. Their premium membership gives you unlimited access to these high-quality courses so that you can improve your skills and unlock new opportunities to do the work you love. If you're a fan of short stories like this and want to learn how to write a few yourself, you might check out this course on writing character-driven short stories by Yiyun Lee. You can join the millions of students already learning on Skillshare today because I've got a special offer just for you. 2 months of unlimited access to Skillshare's over 20,000 classes for free. Follow the link in this video's description to get started. It's just that easy. Act now for this special offer and you can start learning today.